Battlecry of Freedom by Ngakma Nor'dzin.
Part 2, the slogans. Slogan 56, avoid boastful behaviour.
You ma gom.
Avoid boasting about the achievements of riding the mind as if they have been accomplished alone. Every achievement in mind training is dependent on others. In the summer months, while she lived at the riding school, Dee was turned out at night in a large paddock next to the arena. I always thought of this as Dee's paddock. There were a number of logs in this paddock, and it was sometimes used for jumping lessons. One log in particular was rather large and usually ignored in lessons because it was so high and wide. On one occasion, however, at the end of the grade 3 lesson, the instructor was encouraging us to jump the huge log. The instructor was herself an experienced and capable show jumper and owned a beautiful stallion. We had 2 trainee instructors with us that day, plus the regular group of adults. None of the other regular group members would attempt jumping the huge log. I think this was a reasonable response, knowing how the school horses could behave in jumping lessons. The 2 trainee instructors were expected to jump it, and they were riding able horses. They jumped it with no problems. And then there was me, on Dee. I knew that if she turned and approached the log at a good pace, that she would jump it. I felt that I would know in advance by a sense of hesitation or reluctance if she felt the jump was beyond her capacity. I cantered away from the log, turned her and pointed her at the jump. She approached the log at a good pace without a hint of hesitation. We soared over it. It was the largest jump I had ever taken on any horse before or since. I am glad to have done it, but I know full well that it had very little to do with my capability and everything to do with Dee. I was congratulated by the instructor, but she intelligently congratulated me for the relationship I had developed with Dee rather than for my capacity as a rider. I could have become puffed up about having done what none of the other class members would do. This would have been foolish and dangerous. It would have spoiled the open joyfulness of the moment, ignored the reality of Dee being the essential factor, and potentially created problems for me in future lessons if I believed too much in my capabilities. Ngakchen Rinpoche described his jumping experience as being open to the insanity of the situation.
I was riding Mr. Darcy, a fast-moving 16.5-hand horse, at a jump. I was without fear, only because I had no concept that Melissa Troop, my instructor, could be in error about the situation. It was entirely insane to be flying into the air on 1,500 pounds of horse. The situation was outside my comprehension of what was possible, and so I had no way of making any intellectual judgment about what was happening. Melissa told me that although Kandro Dechen was a far better rider, that I was a better jumper. That still vaguely baffles me. I feel that the only factor that kept me safe was that I was unable to think. Mr. Darcy did it all. I merely failed to fall.
When practitioners recognise some success in mind training, identity fixation wants to take the credit. Identity fixation wants to be congratulated and recognised as the great practitioner. In fact, any success in awakening is due to the non-dual state sparkling through the web of duality. The non-dual state has no conditioned, self-satisfied identity. For identity to assert ownership and credit for progress in mind training is like a reflection claiming it is responsible for the capacity of the mirror to reflect.
Trango Rinpoche says, avoid thinking, oh, I was so kind to that person, or oh, I practiced so well, I try so hard, I'm so good.
To practice mind training is a personal choice. Its value is inestimable, and ultimately it is the cause of awakening. Practice commitment is not a trophy or a mark of status. Practitioners not worthy of greater respect or consideration than non-practitioners, in fact quite the reverse. Practitioners must appreciate their great good fortune in having access to mind training and thereby the means to awaken. Practitioners must recognize that all other beings and circumstances have been the means of their practicing mind training. Success in practice should not be the cause of self-aggrandizement, therefore, but the cause of humble appreciation.
Thubten Jinpa says, if you have correctly distinguished between enemy and friend, you understand everyone to be a friend. Then, even when you work for others' welfare, the jaundice of self-centeredness does not arise.